What up guys, Miguel here of YugaTech, and we are back again with another comparison, and this time it's gonna be a pretty interesting one. We are comparing two mid-range smartphones. One of them seems to be the talk of the town right now, the other a start of the year fan favorite. It's the Huawei Y9 Prime 2019 and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 7. Alright, let's hit it. As always, let's first talk about the design. It's undeniable that both these phones sport a flashy and attractive design, with the Y9 Prime 2019 and its fake two-tone back which is made up of plastic, and the Redmi Note 7 with its glossy metallic finish and glass back. I think it's worth mentioning that the Redmi Note 7 gets Gorilla Glass 5 protection both in front and the back, so if you have butterfingers, do note that the Redmi Note 7 might be a better option for you in terms of drop protection. Our Y9 Prime 2019 unit is in the emerald green color, but it also comes in sapphire blue and midnight black, while our Redmi Note 7 comes in dream blue, but it's also available in a black and twilight gold colorway. In front, you get a true all-screen display for the Y9 Prime 2019 thanks to that pop-up selfie camera. The Redmi Note 7 gets a dewdrop notch. On both devices' rear, you will find their camera modules as well as the rear-mounted fingerprint scanners. For ports, both phones' power lock button and volume keys are located on the right side. The Redmi Note 7's hybrid dual SIM card tray can be found on the left, nothing here for the Y9 Prime 2019. Up top, you can find the Y9 Prime 2019's before-mentioned pop-up camera, hybrid dual SIM card tray, and noise-cancelling mic for speakerphone. On the Redmi Note 7, you can find an IR blaster, 3.5mm audio port, and a noise-cancelling microphone for speakerphone as well. At the bottom, you may have noticed that both phones come with a USB Type-C port, so finally, 2019 is starting to feel like 2019. Also found here is both devices' main mic for calls and a single downward firing speaker. So in terms of design, I do prefer the Y9 Prime 2019 because of its deceiving two-tone aesthetic, as it isn't something we usually see in most phones nowadays. The Redmi Note 7's gradient looks great too, but then again, it is a matter of preference here. Both phones feel great and sturdy in the hands, however the Y9 Prime 2019 is a tad bit larger compared to the Redmi Note 7. So if you want a smaller phone that's pretty easy to hold, then the latter would be a better option. Now let's head over to display. The Y9 Prime 2019 gets a 6.59-inch Full HD Plus LTPS LCD display, while the Redmi Note 7 has a Full HD Plus IPS LCD one. It's also a tad bit smaller at 6.3 inches. For display protection, the Note 7 is protected with Corning Gorilla Glass 5, while the Y9 Prime gets nothing. Honestly, media consumption on both these phones are great. They're both bright and sharp, but the unobstructed viewing experience the Y9 Prime 2019 provides makes watching your favorite movie or K-pop music videos much more enjoyable. So for display, I'm giving it to the Y9 Prime 2019. As for audio quality, both phones don't really have much to offer. They both sound just like your typical smartphone speaker, and I recommend users to just use their favorite earphones or Bluetooth speaker. Okay, time to see how these phones perform. For hardware, the Y9 Prime 2019 is powered by the high-silicon Kirin 710F 12nm chipset clocked at 2.2 GHz. The Redmi Note 7, on the other hand, gets Qualcomm's Snapdragon 660 14nm chipset, also clocked at 2.2 GHz. These phones both come with 4 gigs of RAM, but the Redmi Note 7 is also available in 3 and 6 gig RAM options. The Y9 Prime 2019 unfortunately has just this one. Also, both these phones are available in 2 storage options as well. You can either get the Y9 Prime 2019 in 4 gigs of RAM plus 64 or 128 gigs of internal storage, and the Redmi Note 7 in 32 or 64 gigs of internal storage. They also both get expandable storage. That's up to 512 gigs on the Y9 Prime 2019 and up to 256 gigs for the Note 7. They also both run Android 9 Pie with their own respective skins on top. Personally, I prefer MIUI more than EMUI because it looks much simpler and cleaner. Now, when it comes to daily productivity tasks, both phones perform really well, and you shouldn't be too worried when it comes to the usual social media browsing, switching between apps, and web searching. So basically for general use. For biometrics, both phones come with a rear-mounted fingerprint scanner, but what the Y9 Prime 2019 lacks is facial recognition, which the Redmi Note 7 has. The Redmi Note 7's facial recognition is of the optical variety though, so the fingerprint scanner is way more secure anyway. Speaking of, both devices have snappy and reliable fingerprint recognition, so that's my 2 cents on that. The same can be said with gaming. Both are capable gaming devices, but the Redmi Note 7 gets higher benchmark scores, and this is evident during our Kenneth game episode with these phones. They can both run games at high settings, but stability differs in some of the test games. But still, both of them can game. Just in case you want to see their side-by-side benchmarks, I'll have them up right now. And now for battery, both phones are equipped with a 4000 mAh cell, but the Redmi Note 7 comes with Quick Charge 4, while the Y9 Prime 2019 doesn't come with any fast charging feature. Our standard video loop test yielded us 18 hours and 53 minutes for the Y9 Prime 2019 and 14 hours and 7 minutes for the Redmi Note 7. So yeah, in terms of overall performance, both of these phones are pretty much at a tie. Alright, let's get into them cameras. The Y9 Prime 2019 is equipped with a triple rear camera setup consisting of a 16 megapixel main shooter, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel for depth information. And in front, you get a 16 megapixel pop-up selfie camera. The Redmi Note 7 on the other hand comes with a 48 megapixel Samsung GM1 sensor plus a 5 megapixel sensor for depth information. In front is a 13 megapixel selfie shooter. I know on paper the Redmi Note 7 might seem to have the upper hand here, but then again, that higher megapixel count really isn't indicative that it will produce better photos. So in this comparison, we didn't use the Redmi Note 7's 48 megapixel feature since the Y9 Prime 2019 lacks that. Heading over to the samples. In this first photo of AJ, we can see that the Y9 Prime 2019 seems to handle the shadows pretty well. We can see more details of her face as well as the gleam on her hair and iris. The Redmi Note 7 looks fine too, but the contrast is a little too much for me. It also didn't seem to handle exposure quite well. Same photo with AI mode turned on. I like how the Redmi Note 7 handled the skin tone compared to Y9 Prime 2019's. The Y9 Prime 2019 shot looks a bit overdone and the scene looks way more overexposed. And look what we have here. Donuts. I know it may seem like there's no difference at all between these two shots, but if you zoom right into those sprinkles, you can see that the Redmi Note 7 has it sharper and more detailed. Now, with AI mode turned on, the Y9 Prime 2019 almost got the same quality as the Redmi Note 7's no AI mode photo. It's sharper and you can see the donuts look glossier. Overall, the photo looks pretty good. Here's a Coca-Cola toy car, and we can see that the Y9 Prime 2019 seems to handle exposure pretty well, and the photo looks way more decent than that of the Redmi Note 7. The color reproduction looks way better too. Now, with AI mode turned on, same story. The Redmi Note 7's photo looks overexposed, while the Y9 Prime 2019 is looking pretty good. Now, onto the phone's rear portrait mode. I could say that they both fare pretty well, but the Y9 Prime 2019 seems to have a better subject background separation. If we zoom into AJ's hair, we can see that her baby hairs weren't cropped out. Night mode time! So with night mode turned off on both these devices, we can see that the Redmi Note 7 did a stellar job at making the lights look alive. The Y9 Prime 2019 shot just looks meh. Now with night mode on, it ain't looking too bad on the Y9 Prime 2019. I actually think it looks a little bit better than the Redmi Note 7's fairly overdone and noisier image. For selfies, we have wax here. I actually prefer the Note 7's take here because it looks more natural compared to the Y9 Prime 2019's photo. Now for portrait selfies, there's no better model than Arel over here. And damn, the Y9 Prime 2019 completely butchered Arel's hair. The software thought that it was part of the background, so yeah. The Redmi Note 7 on the other hand was really kind not to blur out his hair, so it's pretty obvious which device takes the cake here. Now if you're gonna ask me which is better, both devices do especially well in daylight. It's a completely different story when it comes to low light, because even without the night mode on, the Redmi Note 7 still takes great low light photos. However, with night mode turned on the Y9 Prime 2019, it also takes pretty good photos, and honestly, I actually like its night mode feature more than the Redmi Note 7's. So for cameras, I have to say it's a tie. And if you're not too sure about that verdict, just go back and check the images again if you like. And to end this comparison, let's talk about the price. The Y9 Prime 2019 is priced at 12,990 pesos. That's for the 4 gigs of RAM plus 128 gigs of internal storage option, while the Redmi Note 7 comes in 3 variants with the following price tags. That's 7,990 pesos for the 3 plus 32 gig option, 9,990 pesos for the 4 plus 64 option, and 11,490 pesos for 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. The unit we have here is the 4 gigs of RAM plus 64 gigs of internal storage option, and it's a pretty tough decision choosing which of these two phones is better overall, because they both perform really well. If you want a larger true all-screen display and a pop-up selfie camera, then go for the Y9 Prime 2019. But if you prefer it smaller and if you don't mind the notch, then go for the Redmi Note 7. Either way, you can't go wrong with either of the two. Just remember, at the end of the day, you guys still get to decide which one you want to buy because it is your money. So, what did you guys think of this comparison review? Huawei Y9 Prime 2019 or the Redmi Note 7? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to smack that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of future uploads. Be sure to visit YugaTech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. Again, this has been Miguel, and I will see you in the next one.